Last month, we here at EonsOfBattle made the greatest spaceship terrain of all time. Our biggest terrain project ever, and we have been having so much fun playing Space Hulk on it. But we knew that we didn't want to just make a Space Hulk board. We wanted the perfect spaceship board. And right now, we're lacking one thing, and that is room. We want to make some bigger rooms, but what to go in those bigger rooms? Obviously, some things come to mind on a spaceship: engines, crew quarters, buttons, dials, but then we had a thought. What about a cloning bay?
Clones are a staple of science fiction, leaning into a more dystopian setting. They're all sorts of shades of icky, and awesome. Our clones will be part of our August Patreon terrain pack, including the pods, complete with future soldiers growing inside, which can be attached to towers to house the massive network of pods. And what runs the whole operation? Computers run on cloned brains, borrowed from test subjects in the examination/autopsy tables.
I think good terrain helps tell the story of why this particular battle's taken place. What's the chest of gold at the end of the dungeon? And for a sci-fi setting, cloning laboratory. It's a pretty good get.
I started off by gluing the towers together. These can be stacked as high as you want. I'm going with double stacks to fit neatly into the chambers of my spaceship. And for my purpose, these are some line of sight blocking terrain, and the pods getting attached at different angles helps to increase the floor space of these towers. Once I had them built, I gave all my bits a black prime. I had some trouble with the little bits. I don't want to glue these together until I can see them with some paint on them. But it's hard to hold and prime them, so I had an idea. I found this mesh at a grocery store and I spread my minis out on it. This lets the air flow through the screen so the paint can land in my tiny bits without blowing them off my desk. Once I had my black prime on my minis, I gave them a zenithal with some cold gray. I didn't want to do a pure white zenithal prime because that's how I do all my minis. I want my minis to stand out in front of the terrain. I mixed up a batch of speed paints, occultist cloak, and noble skin. A blue-black color and brown-black, 50-50 with some speed paint medium, and I hit all my bits, doing metal in cold black and the hoses in warm black. This speed paint over zenithal does a really good job of doing all the heavy lifting for me, giving me my shadows, highlights, and contrast in easy steps. On the brains, I used some red speed paint to give the craniums a gross fleshy look. Imagine if you had to moisturize your computer's processor to keep it thinking for you. For the inside of my pods, I sprayed some black paint so there's a lot of contrast between the inside of the pods and my clones. And for a highlight, I mixed some white, black, and teal together into a cold gray and gave everything a dry brushing. I'm looking at my cloning pods and they're looking a little bit lonely. I think the perfect thing for them would be 37 in progress clones. I have all these fellas stuck down to the top of my painting palette. I gave them a blasted dark beige and then sprayed some tan from above. Once this was dry, I watered down a red wash and gave each clone a wipe. Looking at this collection from the side, it makes for a really trippy sight. Once the wash was dry, I gave them a small spurt of tan paint to make them as bright as I could. Then one by one, I took my clones and painted their headgear. I wonder what kind of Matrix-esque world these clones are living in as they grow in the pods. After a base coat, I put green and red dots onto their helmets to show how strong each clone's Wi-Fi connection is. Then I glued them into position. This is one of the strangest things I've painted, but I am loving what I'm seeing. Right now, my clones are looking a little vibrant in their cradle, so I sprayed some blue contrast paint over their legs and feet to blend them into the cold steel of their pods. Then I did some embellishing. These pods are essentially objective markers, so I stenciled a circle on top of each tower and numbered them 1 through 3. Then I sponged on some yellow paint to make the numbers chipped and weathered. The next thing I reached for was my dirty down rust. This stuff is the best rust paint out there. Step 1 is slapping it down in patches, letting it dry, and then coming back in with a wet brush and a paper towel and reactivating the paint. I like to use a dry brush for this. It does a good job of blending out the rust and wiping it off the raised areas, leaving it rustiest in the recesses. Now that my rust is done, I gave all the metal a dry brushing a silver. This makes the edge highlights really stand out because where the light hits the edges, it glows, while the opaque paint over the rest of the model shows the details nicely. Oh, look at the little pod people. Oh, it is so gruesome. I love it. The next step is going to be getting all of the covers on the pods, and Nick has printed these in clear. Now they might not look clear yet, but to use a quote from Yoda, they will be. They will be. I never quite got why he was being so ominous, but anyway. These were printed with Soraya Tech Ultra Clear, and the rest using Soraya Tech Fast Navy Gray, the best quality 3D printing resin out there. If you want to try it for yourself, you can shop with the code EonsOfBattle to get 8% off. I sanded the bottom of the pod windows smooth, first with some 60 grit sandpaper and then finishing them with some 220 grit. Then I gave the front of each dome a coat of gloss medium. This fills in all the surface imperfections and gives the pods a glossy look, and I did the same on the inside too. I gave each pod a few coats to get them clear. I've played around with different airbrush varnishes, but the airbrush introduces new problems, so I find brushing it on leads to the best results. Once my pods were clear, I spread some tacky glue onto a playing card and dipped my windows into the card to load them up with glue. Then I pressed them over the clones. You don't want to use superglue for this. Superglue has a habit of frosting, especially in a closed off space like a cockpit, or in this case, clone pods. Some of these pods are smashed, so I decided to play into the storytelling, putting some blood for the blood god over the holes in the glass. I don't know if this is a case where the clones broke out or something broke in, but whatever it was a bad time. I also sprinkled some blood over the mechanical arms of the examination table. It's a very thorough examination. The round windows of the pods make the clones inside look extra weird and ghostly, like whatever is happening really shouldn't be.
Whenever I use the blood for the blood god technical paint, I gotta check myself to make sure that I don't go into the world looking like an axe murderer. 40 cloning pods all done, enough for 2 full squads of Kriegers. Technically, the Kriegers aren't clones. Probably. But this set doesn't just end at clones, it is an expansion to our Space Hulk terrain. And there's some spicy new pieces.
The first wall section houses the examination chairs and arms. These arms fit into a rotating socket so they can be posed any which way, and after a few squirts of blood, they look well used. And these are the tools. One trick for quickly knocking out fiddly details like this is speed paint. The speed paint flows over the models and quickly base coats these details, then I went over them with a dry brushing of silver, which only caught on the raised portions that were again, the tools. Next up, the computers, where engineers can interface with the brain computer. I base coated the screen with a dark gray paint and then free-handed some text over top. Then I blasted them with neon green paint. This is why I used gray instead of black. The green over the gray makes the screens brighter overall. Now for the double doors. New to the clone expansion is the ability to have double wide hallways. Good for models on bigger bases. I put some decals over the doors, labeling them cloning room A, B, and C. And of course, the clone sockets. As if the rooms weren't already jam-packed with enough pods, these let you make a few more. I got all the new bits all painted up, and it's time to reassemble the Hulk with the new added features. While I was painting up all the new stuff, Nick was building and painting more parts from the previous set to house all the new toys, and expanding our spaceship. We want more rooms to play around in and come up with new mission scenarios, and it never hurts to have more spaceship terrain floating around. The last little cherry on top was filling up the new sections with pods. I made one room the all pods all the time don't even ask room, one a 50-50 mix of pods and examination tables, and the last room got the mad scientist vibes. With smashed pods and lots of blood. Some might say too much blood. You don't want to know what goes on in this room. This spaceship has been months and months in the making, but finally we were putting it all on the table. This is our finest creation yet.
This is the coolest thing we've ever made, and the mega rooms have given us so much more room to actually play on this terrain. It really opens it up. Oh, and the clones. They look absolutely ghostly in like that semi-transparent, almost like membrane covering. Clones are a classic staple of science fiction. Pretty much everything does clones. Even 40K does clones from time to time. Actually, during the cursed 21st founding, the Adeptus Mechanicus found one of the Emperor's old laboratories. Maybe this is that laboratory. This laboratory has made a lot of abominations. And the Lamenters. I don't know what kind of special rules I want to write for this terrain. It's gotta be something good. Something that takes advantage of the cloning pods and the brain terminals and whatever the heck happened in that room over there. Something really gnarly, but it's gonna be great. For 40K, for Star Wars Legion, maybe even a little Dead Zone. It's even got the tiles perfectly suited for Dead Zone. And gonna have to make this into a Space Hulk mission, for sure. The clone expansion will be available on our Patreon for the month of August. We made our own episode 2, Attack of the Clones! I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and as always, thanks for watching.